Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today we'll be discussing the classic AD&D adventure Tomb of the Lizard King.
Sweet! Tomb of the Lizard King! Guess that means we're going to Paris.
What?
Paris, you know where Jim the Lizard King Morrison from The Doors is buried? His tomb is a popular spot.
Dude, you are not fighting Jim Morrison no matter how many times you ask me. Today we're talking about the classic 1982 module written by Mark Akers. The book is 32 pages long and is intended for 5th to 7th level characters. While the original module has been long out of print, you can pick up a PDF and a print-on-demand version from DriveThruRPG. I have links down below in the video description. Now, for the sake of full disclosure, DriveThruRPG did send me copies of the print and PDF versions in order to do them for this review. So a huge thank you for that. The PDF is great. It is bookmarked and the maps and everything are very high resolution in order for you to use them and print them out and everything be clear. Now, the print-on-demand book is also extremely good. Now, however, unlike the original that had a big fold-out map, the print-on-demand version has a printed map on the inside, kind of like how they did Ravenloft. But unlike Ravenloft, nothing is actually hidden down in the binding. You can see everything very, very clearly. So this is a fully usable print-on-demand version, unlike the Ravenloft, where I recommended you go ahead and pick up the PDF as well. If you just want to pick up this version, this is all you need, so it does get my full thumbs up for them doing a quality job. Now, there is a 5th edition conversion available at DM's Guild. I haven't read it, so I can't comment one way or the other how well they did. But I will say that because there is such a large gap between 1st and 5th edition, simply straight converting all the monsters and magic stats doesn't actually work that well. Power levels of certain monsters and spells are vastly different between the two editions, so some parts might end up becoming tougher or easier than the module originally intended for them to be. So Dungeon Masters, as always, use your best judgment if you're trying to do the 5th edition conversion. The module offers some great aspects. It's got intrigue, great overland and dungeon adventure, what at the time was considered a huge twist to a classic monster. It also has a whole lot of combat, and a lot of people love this module and look back on it with fond memories and have loved it over the years. I, however, am not one of those people. I first ran this scenario somewhere around 1993, and then I ran it myself about a year later, so 1994, and it was about that time that I realized that my Dungeon Master had made some aggressive changes to that module in order for our characters to survive it. This is a meat grinder game. So what I'll do here is I'm going to offer my tips and my criticisms as a Dungeon Master and player who has gone through this adventure. But before we do go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. So for any players in the audience, please stop now if you ever want to experience this classic module. But definitely send your Dungeon Master this way to see Tomb of the Lizard King will work well for your group. But if you do keep going, you are going to ruin the surprise for yourself. Okay, Dungeon Masters, let's get to work. Tomb of the Lizard King has a lot of great aspects, but it also has a lot of what I would consider fatal flaws. The plot is that the long-dead Lizard King Sakatha has returned to destroy his sworn enemy, the descendant of the Count of Yore, who'd vanquished him in battle long ago. The module opens with a paragraph explaining that it's designed for a party of 7 to 9 characters ranging between 5th and 7th levels. First off, that is a huge group, and not many Dungeon Masters have that many players or can handle that many players at any one time. The standard way that DMs get around this is just by simply using characters that are higher level than the module recommends. That's the way DMs have been doing it for years. However, the module specifically states that under no circumstances should a Dungeon Master allow a cleric above 7th level, and the reason for that is it would seriously unbalance the ending. Now, this is the first warning sign that something is wrong with this adventure. The game is designed for high-level groups, but because a cleric's ability to turn undead might hurt or damage the author's original concept of how the adventure was supposed to end, their answer is to simply neuter the parties. That way they have to be clipped down to a lower level in order to achieve that result. But the flip side is they now have to use a more massive group in order to compensate for the fact that they're too low level for it. It then goes on to say how difficult the adventure is and how players might not like losing their favorite characters. So the module offers 8 pre-generated characters for them to play instead. These are actually some pretty good pre-generated characters as far as pre-gens go back in the first edition days. Now, but all this makes this module feel like it's a tournament one-shot more than an actual regular adventure module that Dungeon Masters can then work into their regular campaigns and the players can use their favorite characters that they're working on right then. They know that it is not suitable for characters that are 5th through 7th level, and they're really just trying to cover for it by saying, oh, well, here's some players you can use instead because we know it's going to kill you. Now, the scenario begins as adventurers are called to meet with the Count of Yore. Now, this is an open call, so there's going to be lots of different adventuring parties there, and I think it would be really cool if in your campaign you actually have rival adventure parties, that they see them there waiting around inside the courtyard as they get called in, one at a time and eventually sent away until finally the player characters get called in to meet with the Count, and that's when they get to find out what this whole thing is about. The Count explains that bandits are attacking the area and a group of men he has sent has gone missing. He's willing to hire the player characters, and as payment, they get to keep any loot they find, and they get to earn his gratitude.
Whoa. Gratitude? Isn't that a lot like paying us with exposure? Could you just maybe refresh my memory as to what the conversion rate between gratitude and gold pieces is?
Now, the Count isn't a total cheapskate. He can be talked into giving $2,500 worth of equipment to help outfit the player characters before they leave, but I say that he needs to pay something in order for them to do the job. Once they've completed the adventure, what's he going to give them then, rather than you get to keep all the crap that you find that you were probably going to be keeping anyway? So what I suggest is instead of him offering money, because money is not going to be a problem in this adventure. If the PC's complete it, they're going to get tons and tons of money. So maybe the Count could offer them something a little bit different, such as land for a fighter to build his keep upon, or land for a cleric to build a temple, or a place where a magic user can set up their own little place. Or he can offer his daughter or son's hand in marriage to one of the PCs. No matter what it is, it needs to be something that money can't easily buy. This needs to be a reward worthy of someone of noble stature who's going to be hiring the PCs. Now, once the player characters have agreed to the job, he's going to bring them into a meeting room where over 30 people, guards and merchants, are all waiting, and they're probably a bit pissed off at this time because evidently they've just been waiting all day as the Count has been going through different groups and interviews like that until finally he chose the PCs and decided to grace them with his presence. Now, this whole scene is a great opportunity to roleplay. Player characters are going to hear different rumors about these brigands, some of them true, most of them not, but one rumor that isn't mentioned that you should give them is kind of whispered legends that maybe Lizard King Sakatha, the villain of old, has suddenly returned. Now, before the player characters can learn any more about those legends that they just heard about, that's when an evil cleric is going to attempt to assassinate the Count with a flame strike spell. And you can even have that flame strike spell take out whoever just dropped that nice little hint in the player character's ear. Now, this cleric is likely going to escape after the attack, but then you can have the PCs ask the Count specifically about Sakatha, which he's going to blow off and say that it's just an old legend and people are just trying to use that name to instill fear, or maybe use his name as a rallying point for people. But right now, how it shows up in the adventure is that the Count is only going to mention this to the PCs if they use magic to compel him, which just is weird, and it seems like a huge wasted opportunity for foreshadowing. After all, it is only a rumor, one of many rumors that the player character should be getting at the beginning. But because of the big reveal that it really is the Lizard King Sakatha, you should start laying the groundwork down for that big reveal early on. That way it's not like some sort of big, so who cares once it happens? If you don't have any foreshadowing for it, the player characters are not going to care one way or the other once you do the big reveal. Now, the overland trek to Waycombe is going to take several days. Now, one aspect that I really like about Sakatha is that he is watching them through a crystal ball, and he is going to react accordingly to what the player characters do. There are several impossible encounters along the way here, all of which I like. However, 3 of them, the refugees, the stragglers, and the clerics, can all add story detail to the plot. So I suggest that dungeon masters don't leave these encounters up to the chance of dice rolls, but make them definitely planned encounters along the road. One encounter they'll definitely have is once they stop at the Robin's Breast Inn. Now, if they don't stop at the inn for whatever reason, just simply move the encounter to either Waycombe at the end or somewhere along the road with a caravan of refugees. But the player characters are going to meet this crappy minstrel named Pluck, and Pluck is going to sing them a terrible song. Jack?
Can't believe you really want me to do this. You do realize that I have like 0 musical ability, right?
Well, you're in good company, because neither does Pluck, and neither do most of the dungeon masters that have to sing this crappy song for their players. Now sing.
Fine, but I am doing this under protest. Okay, let's see. Oh, Sakatha once was the great lizard king, said to have power stored in a ring. O'er swamplands and plainlands his dominions they spread, his very name filled all creatures with dread. To build his tomb in the midst of the marsh, many men died in slavery most harsh. His minions took all our best for his altar, not a day did his bloody thirst falter. And then arose the great Count of Yore, the greatest of heroes in those days of yore. He slew Sakatha in the battle of Waycombe, the lizard men carried the slaughtered chief home. And now he awaits in the cold sleep of death, his day of awakening, his first newborn breath. Though deep in the ground his followers closed him, he'll come back for a vengeance on those who opposed him. God, that was bad.
DMs print off this lyric sheet and give it to your players once they encounter this minstrel. The next planned encounter is going to happen once they reach the large bridge, and there they're going to be attacked by 20 lizard men. Now this is one of those areas where additions make a big difference. First edition lizard men are kind of weenie compared to 5th edition lizard folk, which are a whole lot tougher. First edition just pretty much made them a different version of orcs, while 5th edition made them something kind of badass. So whether you do 5th edition or 1st edition, this is still going to be one hell of a big fight. After that, the PCs are going to meet Bartow. He was with the Count's previous forces, but was captured and charmed. He's going to tell the player characters some information, some of it's even going to be true. But among them, he's going to give them a hot tip on where they're going to be able to find these brigands once they reach Waycombe, which is all going to be for an ambush he's setting them up for. And after that, he's going to leave the PCs and he's going to head back home and he's going to report to the Count and maybe get some reinforcements. Now, according to the overland map, Bartow, if he's on foot, is going to take 9 days for him to reach the Count. So my suggestion here is if the player characters have not killed Sakatha within that time, breaking the charm spell, Bartow, once he reaches the Count, is going to assassinate him. So the PCs, they don't realize this at all, but they unknowingly set a timer for themselves. They have until Bartow reaches the Count in order to kill Sakatha and break the charm spell. This is made even worse if they do something like offer Bartow a horse. That way it halves the time it takes for him to get there. So this is something the Dungeon Master can keep in the back of their head, that there is an assassin that just went off to meet the Count. The player characters have to break the charm spell before that assassin can complete his job. Now, once they reach Waycombe, there isn't much to see. The village is mostly burned out and deserted, but if they follow Bartow's hot tip, they're going to be ambushed by a black dragon. This thing is bad news. It is 400 years old and extremely smart. Again, DMs that are using 5th edition are going to have a much tougher bad guy than the original 1st edition weenie versions of what dragons were. 1st edition did not give dragons the justice they deserved. But either way, a 400-year-old dragon that's got spells and acid breath is going to be a big opponent for player characters that, once again, according to the module, could be 5th level, and they are not going to be suited to fight this monster, but hey, that's what the module says they should do. Now, near the edge of the swamp, the player characters are going to meet a crazy hermit named Steven, and he has a terrible little song that he's going to sing for them.
They all think I'm crazy, so crazy I am, but I'll still be here when they ain't what they am. They'll all be taken to Sakatha's lair, but me, I'll be free as a bird in the air.
Steven has 2 reasons to be here. First, he does give some valuable information about Sakatha and adds to the plot and all the intrigue like that. Really like that aspect. The second reason is Steven's going to offer to carry the PCs through the swamp on his raft in order to get to Sakata's lair. Now, the journey through the swamp is long. Too long if you ask me. The path is 23 miles in length, and it says that if the player characters are using a raft, in a 12-hour day, they're only going to be able to clear 5 miles. And if they're trying to do it by foot, they're only going to be able to clear 2 miles in a day. Now, I grew up in swamp country. I'm pretty familiar with swamps and trying to get across them, and you could easily double that movement rate and it still be 100% realistic. You can even do a little bit more than double it if you'd like.
My whole beef with Crazy Steven here is, why is he even necessary for this adventure? Sure, he does add some fun color and he's a fun little NPC character to use, but he shouldn't be necessary for the adventure. I mean, raiders have been coming through this swamp for months now, so there should be more than enough broken sticks and branches and old fire pits and all sorts of crap that a ranger could easily follow it. I mean, that's why we have rangers to begin with, right? That's kind of like their thing.
Also, there's several encounters along the way, and there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to add a brigand patrol or something like that, and one of the brigands has a map that leads them to Sakata's lair. Or as they're going deeper in the swamp, they start seeing signs that there's lizardmen activity, such as, skulls with painted feathers hanging in the trees, or different things that the lizardmen use to show their territory, and that can tell the player characters that they're on the right path. Now, this is all before we even get to the fact that once they start getting closer to the lair, because there are so many fires there, the player characters should be able to see or smell the smoke that's telling them they're on the right path. A lot of modules don't take into account fire, but, this one doesn't. It's got a lot of fire. There should be smoke, and that should help lead them there once they get deep enough into the swamp. Now, eventually, somewhere between 4 and 12 days, if you're using the module correctly, they're going to discover the temple. Here we get a good map. The player characters are going to fight some brigands, water weirds, and if they didn't kill it on the first encounter, or they didn't have the first encounter with it, a 400-year-old adult black dragon that's guarding the entrance, so this is going to be one hell of a big fight. Now, from here, it descends down into the dungeon. This is a pretty standard dungeon here, not much to talk about. We have a whole lot of combat with low-level fighters, a lot of spellcasters, a shambling mound, a mimic, a lot of traps. Many of these traps, though, are save or die traps, and the saving throws, at least the saving throws in the pre-generated characters specifically made to do this adventure, most of them have less than a 50% chance of surviving a saving throw on a save or die trap, so these traps, which there are a lot of, are super duper deadly. The random encounters are also pretty brutal, which includes trolls, wights, a demon, and a pack of clerics armed with spells. All in all, the player characters are going to have to fight for every single inch to get through the dungeon level 1. Considering that they just fought a black dragon and a pack of brigands just to get in through the front door, hopefully they have enough hit points and spells in order to make it through the dungeon. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that according to the room descriptions, the entrance to the secret tunnel is here and not in some random hallway. Now, eventually, the player characters are going to find the passage that leads them down into the tomb levels of the dungeon, which is protected by a stairwell that can turn into a super happy fun slide and spin them all the way down to where they reach this big pit of fire that they have zero chance of surviving. Now, one thing that I think Dungeon Masters should bring up is give them a little hint once they reach the stairwell about the amount of dry heat that they feel coming out of it, because essentially they're at the top of a very large chimney above a very large fire. So Dungeon Masters, go ahead and give them that hint that there's a lot of dry heat, maybe some smoke that's coming up through this essential chimney that turns into a super happy fun spinny slide to death. Down the second level, once they make it past an overly complex illusionary river trap, they're going to be attacked by 16 wights. Now, I have said in previous videos that I have an issue with an abundance of level draining monsters. Yes, sure, a cleric can turn a wight. They can do it automatically once they get 7th level, but they can only turn 1 die 12 of them, which there are 16 wights. So even if you have 2 7th level clerics here, they might not be able to turn all of the wights, and that way the PCs might still get attacked and might lose a few levels before they get to have the final encounter, which once again they already aren't high enough level for. Also, right next to the wights camp is a camp of lizardmen. Now, the lizardmen are specifically said that they're not going to engage in anything if they hear it, because they're going to assume that anyone down here is supposed to be down here. However, we are inside of a large cave, and once the PCs start fighting these wights and they start shooting stuff like lightning bolts and fireballs and screaming and all the other stuff that happens when you fight a pack of 16 wights, the lizard men are probably going to figure out that something wrong is going on, and they're going to come and they're going to go ahead and join in this fight. I don't like the idea that the PCs have this huge fight, then they go like 60 feet over, and all of a sudden there's this pack of lizard men that didn't hear all this stuff going on at all. That seems really, really dumb to me. Once we get into the next level of the dungeon, we're going to face a lot more deadly traps. This part makes sense, but once again, a lot of deadly traps. There's also going to be several murals that come to life, and they themselves are extremely deadly as they fight the player characters.
The big problem here is that there are a lot of magic murals that start having these things coming out and attacking your player characters. One, for example, gives out lizard men. It shoots out 5 lizard men a round. It can have up to 50 lizard men at any given time attacking your player characters. And while the module gives all these creatures stats and whatnot, nowhere does it bother telling you exactly how to hurt the walls, like how many hit points they have. Because I'm going to tell you from personal experience that after about the second round of your players seeing stuff come alive and out of the walls, they're going to start attacking those walls.
After more combat, including a 9th level cleric, the player characters are going to finally make it down to the last level of the dungeon, where they're going to face off against the evil Lizard King Sakatha. And it's at this time that the player characters discover the true secret, that Sakatha is also a vampire.
Bum, bum, bum! Seriously, was this supposed to be a surprise or something? Because if it was, that vampire lizard queen bride in the other room kinda tipped us off.
While vampire monsters have been a regular inclusion in D&D since 3rd edition, at the time this module came out, there hadn't been monstrous vampires before, so this was a big deal and a big step in a different direction, and it was a very cool thing that this module gave to the entire game. Not only is he a vampire lizard king, but he's also a 9th level mage who's armed with Cloud Kill, Lightning Bolt, Fireball, and a slew of other offensive spells that he can use to damage and destroy the player characters to his heart's content. Now, the author of this module was evidently so proud of this villain that the mere idea that a cleric might be able to turn him made him neuter the group by allowing no more than a 7th level cleric in order to do it. Now, a 7th level cleric could still turn a vampire, it's just not a majority chance. But I don't see a problem with a cleric being able to turn Sakatha. After all, they're not going to be able to complete the adventure until they have killed him. So there's nothing wrong with a cleric doing what a cleric does. That's probably why the player played a cleric in the first place. So I don't see it as a big thing that's going to break the game. And it's definitely not worth something that in order to have your big boss fight, you should just neuter the party and have him go in under-leveled.
I am right there with you. Everything in this dungeon felt like it was either brutal combat or save or die traps. None of it felt like it was intended for intermediate level characters. Which, by the way, the I series, that's what the I stands for, intermediate characters.
I love the first half of this scenario with its intrigue and the assassination attempt right when it kicks off. That was a big deal at the time. People hadn't seen that before, and a lot of modules have taken that and they've grown with it, and it's become a regular part of our games. And my only complaint with the first half of the adventure is the fact that they don't do enough foreshadowing that Sakatha has returned. It's like pulling teeth, where you have to use spells on your boss in order to find out what's really going on. I think that's where they actually dropped the ball in the first half, and that's very easy to correct. That way you can start laying down the foundations for the big reveal that yes, Sakatha has returned, and then the player characters can ask, how is he still alive? And maybe they can figure out beforehand that yes, he is an undead horror.
Seriously, so much of this module ended up being compromised in order for them to get their big reveal.
But the second half of this adventure feels pretty much just like a tournament hack and slash that's really just intended to measure how far the players can get before their characters are killed, rather than trying to be an enjoyable game that's possible to win and something that you could put inside of an active campaign. My big recommendation here is instead of capping your player characters off at 7th level because you don't want to ruin or spoil the big ending by a cleric being able to turn the big bad guy, just go ahead and run this adventure for 7th to 9th level characters characters. Make 7th your base, and make 9th about your cap. That way you can run it for maybe 5 to 7 players instead of requiring you having 9 players in order to do it. And give Sakatha maybe a ring or some sort of ability that makes him turnable as a higher level monster, such as a ghost or a lich. After all, he is a much more powerful creature than just your standard run-of-the-mill vampire. He is a very powerful wizard as well, but even then, I don't see a huge problem if you make it normal and allow a cleric at 7th level to be able to turn him. It just seems like a much more simple solution to me than just using pre-generated characters because the dungeon master doesn't want the players to lose all their characters. So now they're playing with these people they don't care about one way or the other, and they're probably never going to play them again. This way they get to play their own characters in the campaign, and they get to work up towards something, and they've got a possible chance of surviving this entire adventure. Overall, Tomb of the Lizard King brought forward a lot of cool ideas, and many other scenarios have used those cool ideas and built on them and made things much better with them, and you can't take that away from this adventure for what it added to the game. However, I just don't think it's a good module. It's a bad module with a lot of great features. Now, most of these issues can be dealt with pretty simply, either raise the PC's level or tone down what's inside the adventure in order for characters of the levels that it suggests to be able to complete it. Probably you will need to do both. Now, some dungeon masters and players really love this scenario. They've got a lot of great memories that are linked to it, and they wouldn't trade those memories for the world. And you know what? That's great. I hope they had fun with it. And other game masters, they're going to look at this review and they're going to think, you know what? Challenge accepted. I'm going to run this just how it says. You know what? Good luck. Have fun. I hope you do. But for me, this adventure is a wonderful example of when I talk about that modules really themselves aren't that good, but they are perfect idea mines for things to steal and use in your own campaign. And it's a great tool that dungeon masters should read this module but not necessarily run it. And whenever I say that there are some old modules that really just aren't that good at all in order to run them, Tomb of the Lizard King is one of the first ones that comes to my mind.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our videos, such as game reviews or RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. Until next time, heroes, you have a great day. You know, I think a better twist at the end where they got to Sakatha's lair and it was actually Jim Morrison, and you had to beat him through a dance-off.